Welcome to the home team, the show where no matter who you cheer for, here you're a part of the home team. So we are a quarter of the way through the 2024 NFL season, and we are handing out report cards for all 32 teams. So I'll be grading them on, we've all been to school, that grading scale, A to F. It's not as simple as you're 2-2, you get this, you're 3-3, you get this. This is based a lot on the expectations for the team, my personal, feelings about why they've won or lost and how they're looking. Are there extenuating circumstances such as injuries or is your quarterback a rookie or something like that? So it's not so uniform, but I will do my best to explain my grade for each team. Before we jump in, hit like, hit subscribe. Really helps the channel. I really appreciate it. So without any further ado, let's get going with report cards, shall we? Let's start in the AFC East. First up, we got the Buffalo Bills. So as of right now, the Bills are sitting at 3-1. They've been very, very impressive despite their Week 4 loss to the Ravens. Overall, I'm going to give the Bills an A for the first quarter of the season. They dominated three teams, didn't go their way in the fourth game. Doesn't particularly concern me. Every team is going to lose games. Josh Allen is looking as though he is in peak form in many ways. And I think that the Bills have really overperformed relative to what we all thought they could be. A lot of people are really concerned about their receiver situation, and through 4 games, it hasn't been particularly concerning. They're a team where if they could find a way to swing a Davante Adams trade, that'd be scary. So through 4 games, I think the Bills they've played about as well as you could have hoped for. So they get an A. The Miami Dolphins are 1-3 through 4 games, and there are going to be some teams where I will give injuries as a reason to not grade them as low. But for Miami, I'm giving them an F for the very simple reason that you knew that Tua was a risk to be injured. He was a risk to have the exact injury that he got, which was a concussion. And Miami failed to put a plan in place and a contingency in place in the form of a proper backup to keep this team afloat. And now they made that bed. Now they got to lay in it. And I think it's a complete failure by the organization and by the people that built this team and all the people who were deciding what this team needs, that this has to be an F, because this was a problem that they should have foreseen, and they didn't. So despite getting a win in Week 1, they haven't been competitive at all in any of the other games. And there's no other way to grade them, unfortunately. So the New York Jets are next. They sit at 2-2 right now, and I'm going to give them a C because I know a lot of people would love to sit here and jump on them and be like they're a D, or I don't think anybody would say that it's an F, but it's very fashionable to say that the sky is falling in New York and with the Jets. However, I was somebody that from the beginning was very much of the opinion that the Jets were going to take a bit of time to coalesce and to fully come together and gel. And I think that's sort of what we're seeing. From week to week, they're not super consistent. One side of the ball flashes, the other side isn't there. The defense outside of Week 1 has played better. I mean, hell, they just lost a game where they only gave up 10 points and held the opposing quarterback to 60 yards passing. So I think it's coming together for the Jets. This is another team, much like Buffalo. They're going to be connected to Davante Adams. And I think that could go a long way for the Jets. I have them at a C because is it a little disappointing where they are? Sure, you could say that. But they're about where I was expecting them to be. So a C is average, and this is basically what I was expecting from the Jets to start the year. Now, if they continue like this by like the halfway point, our quarter 2 grades, that'll be lower if they continue down this path. So Last in the AFC East is the Patriots. They're 1-3 right now. I'm actually giving them a C plus, so a little bit above the Jets, for the very simple reason that the Patriots, in my eyes, have surprised me pleasantly in two ways. Number one, outside of the San Francisco game, they've been very competitive, and they've made things very difficult for every team that they played. You know, week one, they beat the Bengals. They take the Seahawks to overtime, and they gave the Jets a really good fight. And then the other reason why it's a C plus, if they weren't showing such restraint, their grade would be lower. It is very good that they are not panicking and simply pivoting to Drake May because people are going to tell them that they should. They need to have a plan with Drake May, and that plan should include, we are not a good team right now. We cannot just throw him in there behind a bad offensive line with bad weapons to develop bad habits in him. So they've been a pleasant surprise for me, and I believe that they're handling their quarterback situation well. Once again, we will see if they continue to show such resolve. But for their sake and for the sake of Drake May, I hope they continue to. On to the AFC North. So the Baltimore Ravens, they are 2-2 right now, and I'm going to give them a B plus to start the year. They've lost 2 games early in the year. The Chiefs game, they lost a close one against a good team. That happens. The Raiders game is pretty disappointing, but they bounce back nicely, and they get a win in Dallas and a win against Buffalo when they were able to just run wild. So it seems Baltimore is finding an identity and committing to it. They aren't quite as dominant as we would have expected, and I'm a little bit concerned about their ability to throw the ball. But they look like they are finding their identity, and that's a scary thing for the rest of the league. So Baltimore, it's a B, mostly because I was hoping that Baltimore would have come off to a little bit of a faster start, but they get the plus because I think they're heading in a really positive direction. And by the halfway point, I think they'll be a team that has that A mark, if I had to guess. Cleveland, 1-3 right now. It's a D. It could be a lot worse, except most of the Browns team is playing well and is playing hard. It's a D because, my God, Deshaun Watson is not doing great. And even in the games where he is playing well, it seems somebody else takes their turn on offense to just really screw it up. And I believe Kevin Stefanski is a really good coach. I just don't believe that the situation in Cleveland is good this year. Defensively, they're still solid. They don't really get gashed a whole lot. But it's disappointing that their offense couldn't come together a little bit more to where, hell, they couldn't even beat a Raiders team without Max Crosby and Devontae Adams in the game. So there's not a whole lot of positive spin, unfortunately. Pittsburgh, the 3-1 Steelers. I'm going to give them an A minus. It's an A because they are certainly playing better than I think many thought they would. They're playing above their heads in a lot of ways. And like most Mike Tomlin teams in recent years, they're playing above their talent level. It's an A minus because while they're 3-1, it's a little bit, I don't want to say it's fake, but they're a 3-1 team that you're not really scared to play. They beat Atlanta in Kirk Cousins' first game back and tortured them. That's fair. Kept the Broncos from doing anything offensively, which is a trend for them. And then, they do well enough against pretty much everybody, but then Indianapolis manages to get the jump on them, and they show their weakness, which is unless they are either ahead or close, they're not really in the game. They're not built to play more than a couple styles of football. And I think that for a team that started off really strong, we got to look at the situation that we all thought could be a weakness, and it turns out it is. So it's an A because they're 3-1, but A minus because I think that we've seen something that we all knew was there. And while it's a fun story with Justin Fields, it's a little bit scary that Pittsburgh feels vulnerable outside of a few game situations. Like the game has to go like right according to plan for them. Otherwise, I don't think they have a whole lot of counter punches. And then Cincinnati, 1-3 right now, just like the Browns. They get a D plus. They get a D because goddamn Cincinnati, for once can you not start the year just awful. I'm sick of watching the Bengals just completely crap the bed to start every single season. But it's a D plus because their offense is playing well and they will likely rally to some extent. How well? I have no idea. That remains for the Bengals to prove because their defense has not come along nicely, but their offense is. And while it's super disappointing how they started the year, I believe that they are trending upwards to some degree. We'll see how high they can fly, but despite it being a very disappointing start, it doesn't look like they're going to be like a clown show. And I don't think anybody thought they were. It's just annoying to see them do this every single year. So for myself, I'm just disappointed in the Bengals. And I think that that's a part of it. Because obviously, you know, they got Joe Burrow, they got Jamar Chase, they got T. Higgins. They're a talented bunch, especially offensively. Defensively, Trey Hendrickson's a very good edge rusher. Logan Wilson's a good linebacker. But outside of that, they're not really playing well on that side of the ball. So that's a little scary. But the lower grade mostly just comes from the fact of, like, you'd think Cincinnati would have really wanted to put an emphasis on a fast start and to figuring out why the hell they can't. Because when you start this way, you essentially guarantee yourself that you are going to be going to Buffalo and to Kansas City or to Baltimore when the playoffs roll around. And that just makes your life that much more difficult. So, disappointing, but I think they're trending up. The AFC South. Houston is 3-1 right now. They get an A. They haven't been blowing everybody out or anything like that, but the Texans have shown that despite them being young, they are ready to take the next step. They're a team that is not wilted under the pressure. They're a team that's not wilted under expectation. And I think that that is a really positive sign for the Texans. And as they progress, I think that they are one of the more dangerous teams in the AFC. So the Texans get an A. Jacksonville, look away, Jags fans. They are 0-4. Ouch. The last winless team in the league. And as a result, I got to give them an F minus. That's about as bad as it gets, man. They're a team that their owner was out saying that he thought this was the best team in Jags history and that he expects to win now. And then 4 games in and they got nothing in the win column. They're staring down a potential situation where their coach could lose his job. They just paid Trevor Lawrence a lot of money and he's not playing great right now. And it just feels like the sky is falling in Jacksonville. I don't know if the sky really is falling in Jacksonville, but boy, you could not have started off more disappointing. And part of the reason they get an F is they made a commitment to a lot of things that usually you should be committing to when you're in a positive place as a franchise. And then for, the bottom to immediately fall out, it's disappointing. Indianapolis, they're 2-2, and I'm going to give them a C. Because my expectation for them was pretty simple. I think they're well coached for the most part. Granted, Shane Steichen made a pretty baffling decision in the most recent game. But I think they're well coached. I think that they have underrated talent. I think they're talented, but with no name value. but they were always going to live and die on the consistency, or rather the inconsistency, of Anthony Richardson. And he has given us everything with that. He misses the easy throws. He misses wide open throws. But then once or twice a game, he makes a throw that him and maybe 2 or 3 other guys in the whole league can make. And it's just tantalizing enough that the Colts can be optimistic. But him being hurt once again is wildly concerning. And that ties into the decision of, like, he got shaken up on a play, came out for a bit, went back in. And then immediately the next play that they call is like a quarterback power. And I don't understand that from Shane Steichen, because that immediately got Anthony Richardson hurt. And I think that's concerning. But overall, the Colts are about what I expected they are. They're 500. They're playing inconsistent along with their quarterback. And I think that's right where we thought that they would be. So they get a C to start the year. Bang average. Tennessee, 1-3, man. And this one's tough because I don't think anybody would have been shocked if I told you that the Titans were going to be bad. I don't think anybody would have been shocked if I told you that Will Levis was going to be inconsistent. I am giving them an F, but it is an F plus, where it's like, they're bad. They've been pretty disappointing through all phases. But they've at least been feisty and had opportunities where it's like, I kind of want to give them a D or a D minus, but when your only win is against a Miami team that doesn't have their quarterback, like, they could very easily be 0-4 and sitting there with Jacksonville. But, I mean, I haven't been particularly impressed with Brian Callahan as a head coach so far. The Titans' offense has been utterly uninspiring. Large part, Will Levis makes 2 or 3 plays a game that are just amazingly boneheaded plays, and I don't know how he justifies those to himself. But I'm going to give them an F plus because they've at least had moments, but man, they shoot themselves in the foot so incredibly bad that it's just, I can't give them anything else but, it's an F. It's disappointing. You fire Mike Vrabel because of some reason. I don't think anybody thinks that was a good decision. And I think that that's another reason why I'm giving them this is, if Mike Vrabel was the coach in Tennessee, I think that right now, they are at worst 2-2. I think they don't lose that week 1 game against the Bears. They don't completely destruct in these games the way that they do right now if Mike Vrabel is the coach of the Titans. And as a result, that's self-inflicted. That's on you. So you get knocked down for that. So F plus for the Titans. AFC West, Kansas City Chiefs, they are 4-0 right now. And this is one where I'm giving them an A minus for one very simple reason. The Chiefs are one of the teams that have to be held to a different level. So their grade is determined differently than basically every other team. So Chiefs fans, this isn't me saying that, they're like the Steelers, the other A minus team I gave out. No. You are absolutely a bona fide contender. The details are what I'm grading the Chiefs on. And the fact that the Chiefs offense is just off enough. And then you get the injury to Rashee Rice, and the Chiefs offense just needs to wake up for me before it's like, this is a full-blown A, this is an A+, you're going to get the 3-peat, yada, yada, yada. You know what I mean? The Chiefs are absolutely a juggernaut. They're tough to deal with, and right now their defense is playing very well, and it's what's leading them to most of their wins. But I need that offense to wake up, and with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, I am not worried about the Chiefs offense, but it does need to be taken into consideration through 4 weeks, because we're now at the point where 4 weeks in, we can start to see the trends in teams, and Kansas City's offense isn't out there lighting the world on fire. So they're 4-0. They're a juggernaut. They're a contender. But by their standards, this is an A- start to the year. Las Vegas, 2-2. Devontae Adams requests to trade out, and because of that, I am going to give them a D. Had they not had that situation where one of their star players wants to leave the team, this would be a C, because this is right where the Raiders should be. Arguably one win over where they should be. I don't think the Raiders are good. I don't have a lot of faith in Antonio Pierce as a coach, but they were doing average. They were at least being competent enough. And it really comes down to the fact that, hey, when one of your best players wants out, that's disappointing, to say the least. So it's a D for the Raiders. Denver, 2-2 as well. I'm going to give them a D plus. Their offense is not good, but the plus comes because their defense is playing very well. Their defense is locking people down. They gave Tampa Bay the only ass whipping Tampa Bay has had this year, and this is despite the fact that their offense is not doing much, and that's why this is a D. To say that their offense has been anything short of disappointing would be disingenuous, and it's unfortunate. I think Sean Payton is a good coach. I also think that Sean Payton's offense is very detailed and very difficult to pick up, notoriously so. And I don't believe that it is particularly friendly to a young quarterback. And so Bo Nix needs more time to settle in. But it has been an uninspiring start to the season offensively. But defensively, they've really played well, and it's kept the Broncos alive. Chargers, also 2-2. I'm giving them a C+. This is sort of where I thought the Chargers would be. I thought they might have been 3-1 at this point, but the Chargers have dealt with injuries. And I think that that has to count for something. Unfortunately, with the Chargers, this is not a new occurrence. This is something that has happened consistently. But they get the plus because I think they're trending up, and they played a lot more physically than they have in recent years. And I think Jim Harbaugh is having a really positive effect with the Chargers. But that effect can only be felt if the guys that they need are out there. And their lack of weapons is very apparent, and I think that this offseason their focus needs to be upgrading the receiving weapons for Justin Herbert. NFC East, moving on to the NFC. So, start out with Dallas. They are 2-2 right now, and I'm going to give them a C. Would I like for Dallas to be a little bit better? Sure. But I'm not overly shocked because Dallas is one of these teams that when you have an offseason that Dallas had, sometimes it takes you a little bit longer to get going. You have significant players that are out or disgruntled, and it causes a weird dynamic in the building. You pair that with the fact that Mike McCarthy doesn't have an extension on his contract. He's in his last year of his deal to be Cowboys coach. And I think that it just causes this whole swirl of weird stuff in Dallas. And as a result, I didn't expect them to get out to a particularly fast start. So they're going to get a C. They're about what I thought. Philly, the Philadelphia Eagles, they are also 2-2. And I'm also giving them a C. They're about what I thought. I thought that they are talented, but I don't think that Nick Sirianni is a particularly good coach. And I don't believe that Jalen Hurts is a transcendent type of player. And I believe that the dynamic with the Eagles is just off. They, outside of basically adding Saquon Barkley, who is playing great, I'll give him that. But outside of that, this is the same team that fell apart last year. And until I know why they fell apart and why that shouldn't happen again, I don't believe that the Eagles are a great team. I believe that they are a talented team, that something is broken. I don't know what. Because we don't know exactly what caused them to fall apart last year. It's all been very mysterious. From the moment where they got their asses kicked by San Francisco, from that moment on, the Eagles were not the same. And they're still not the same. They don't dominate anybody, and they never seem to be ahead of the curve on things. Like, their defense is still not good. Outside of Jalen Carter, their defense is not good. Their offense, it's injured. So they get a little bit of grace there in terms of A.J. Brown being out, Devonta Smith being out as well. That's not good. But they were showing signs of being troubled anyways. And it's just a gut thing with the Eagles. Because you look at their team and it's like, they're an all-star team. They look great. They got two of the best tackles in the league. They got a good tight end. They got one of the best receivers in the league. They got one of the best number 2 receivers in the league. Offensively, they should be a lot better than they are. And there's not a whole lot of tangible stuff other than I don't believe in Nick Sirianni and I don't believe in Jalen Hurts to the level that others do. And until I see that 2022 was not the anomaly for Jalen Hurts, I am looking at the Eagles with kind of a side eye. And through 4 games, it's looked basically how I thought. Bad on defense, inconsistent on offense, and the Eagles being a talented underachiever. The New York Giants, 1-3 right now. I'm giving them a D because with Malik Nabers, they hit on that pick, and it's given their offense some level of life. Do I think the Giants are good? No. Do I think that they're disappointing? Yes. Did I expect them to be disappointing? Yes. They get a D also because Saquon Barkley went within their division, and it's just a further reminder of you guys paid Daniel Jones when you should not have, and the rest of this team needed to be improved. I believe that the process of the New York Giants has been abysmal. I don't believe that they've done anything well from a process standpoint, and that's unfortunate, but it's a situation that you're in, and as a result, you get a D. Washington, the Commanders, 3-1 right now. They get an A. This is a team that, with their young quarterback, they're doing a lot of good things. Defensively, they're not awesome, and I don't think that Washington's like a contending team yet. I need to see them play some of these like higher up teams before I can like crown them for beating the Cardinals. But Jaden Daniels is playing outstanding. And I think that's really encouraging for Washington. Offensively, Terry McLaurin's looking great. Luke McCaffrey seems to be a decent receiver for them. Zach Ertz is a good tight end. They're running the ball pretty well. Jaden Daniels is not making the mistakes you see from a lot of rookies. And I'm sure that there will be games this year where somebody's going to get the better of him and yada, yada, yada. I'm sure that's going to happen, but that's not something that we need to panic about, Washington has done a very, very good job of bringing him along. And there's nothing you could do but say it's an A, because I don't know how sustainable their level is, because it's only been a couple of games of true excellence. But if they continue at anything close to this level, they are live to win the NFC East, and they are certainly live to make the playoffs. So, through 4 games, A. Well done, Washington. NFC North, the Detroit Lions are sitting at 3-1. They also get an A. When you're a team that is supposed to be a Super Bowl contender and you come out and you're looking like a Super Bowl contender, you get an A. It's not an A+ because defensively they're still not great in the back end, but up front they're looking really good. And Aiden Hutchinson, I would say he would be my runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year right now. I'll do a video about who I think who is like the leader in the clubhouse for each of these awards through the first couple of games. But he is top 2 for Defensive Player of the Year right now. And offensively, they're coming together. The first couple games, they were a little bit out of sync, it felt like. But the last couple, it feels like they are really finding their rhythm. And Detroit's going to be formidable once again. So they get an A. Green Bay, 2-2. I'm giving them a B because this is a weird year. They're 2-2, and their 2 wins are with Malik Willis at quarterback. Their 2 losses are with Jordan Love at quarterback. Now, I think that there is also the correlation of their 2 toughest games. Game when Jordan Love was playing with the Eagles in week 1 and the Vikings in week 4. And then the Colts and the Titans are much more willing to oblige you with a backup quarterback. I believe Jordan Love would have won both those games as well. But they get a B because they got through with Jordan Love's injury. Malik Willis, they made him look like a competent NFL quarterback. Outstanding work by Matt LaFleur. It's a B because their defense is concerning once again. And Jordan Love's knee, I need to see him play more before I really feel comfortable with where he's at. Because against Minnesota, at best, he was inconsistent. At worst, he actively hurt the team. So it's a B for now. I tend to be more on the optimistic end with the Packers because I have a lot of respect for their organization on the whole and for Matt LaFleur. But I need to see Jordan Love's health, and I need to see their defense a little bit more before I put them in the A category. Minnesota, however, 4-0. This is the A+ I decided to hand out. This was a team that J.J. McCarthy got hurt in the preseason, and everybody's like, oh my God, we're going to see Sam Darnold. Is this going to be good? It's going to be damn good, as it turns out. Kevin O'Connell's doing a great job, and they have not played an easy schedule. You know, they've had to beat good teams to get to where they are, and for them to be where they are at 4-0 and to do it in impressive fashion. And, you know, to still have guys like Jordan Addison still getting worked back into things. TJ Hawkinson is still coming back from his injury. So they still have, you know, a level to still hit that's above where they are. And I think that is awesome if you're a Vikings fan. So it's an A+. Are they unbeatable? No. But have they played outstanding? Hell yeah. Chicago, 2-2. I am giving them, I'm torn between C and C-. I'm going to give them a C because I'm going to give a little bit of grace because Caleb Williams is a rookie. But what I don't like is that all the concerns I had about keeping Matt Eberflus in that building have come to pass. Their offense is out of sync. They don't look like they're actually like schematically putting Caleb Williams in the best situation to succeed. They're asking too much of him too early, but what you need to do is bring him along a little slower, and you can slowly put a little bit more on him each week, but you can't just throw the kid in there and expect him to do everything. Now, the fact that their defense is playing well, that is good. And it's the only reason why they have 2 wins, because they're not out here like being world beaters on offense. But it's a C because it's basically what I expected from them. Young quarterback who I know everybody was really excited, but it's very rare that one of those guys comes in and can just take on everything. Now he's flashed, he's had his moments, but I just don't like the approach that the Bears have taken to, you know, integrating him into the NFL. But I believe that he has the talent that it'll work out, but it's just going to take a little bit more time. NFC South, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 3-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I'll be the first to, you know, put my hand up and say, I misjudged the Buccaneers. I was lower on them certainly, but they are quite good, and they get an A from my perspective to start the year. They played very well. And the most important thing, they played the most consistently, especially in this division. They lost to Detroit in a competitive game. And other than that, they beat Detroit. They lost to Denver in a shocker at home. And it's a weird one, but when you have a weird game in the first couple weeks, I tend to chalk it up to being an outlier, if I'm being completely honest. That's not to disrespect the Broncos. That's to simply say we see this happen all the time with teams in this first phase of the year. And I think outside of that, Tampa Bay has looked really good. offense is good, defense is veteran and smart, and I think that, they're a team that I would, at this point, expect to see around the end of the year. And, competing to win this division. And I think Tampa Bay is likely a playoff team. So they get an A. New Orleans, they are 2-2. They get a B+. They started the year off on fire. Them and the Vikings looked really good to start the year. And then New Orleans sort of came back down to earth a little bit. I am curious to see how they bounce back now from 2 consecutive losses, especially given that they are staring down the Chiefs. So it's a B+ because I've been impressed by them. Defensively, they're still pretty solid, and offensively, they've overperformed my expectations. It would be an A, except for the fact that they've not been able to sustain the level. So I'm positive on the Saints. I think they're good. I think there's a chance they could be 2-3, but that does not mean the sky is going to be falling for them. I think they're good. I just need to see consistency. I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with before I can sit here and tell you I think the Saints are playing at an A level every week. Atlanta, 2-2 as well. I'm giving them a B-, not because they played so much worse than New Orleans, but more because their offense is yet to really be clicking. Bijan Robinson is playing quite well, which we all expected, but Kyle Pitts, they're still struggling to get him the ball, and at some point, we have to just ask the question, is that Kyle Pitts? But I also there's something off about their offense. Defensively, they're feisty but not elite, and I think that more than anything else, it's a little disappointing that we all thought that the NFC South was just sort of primed for Atlanta to seize it, and it looks like they might not be ready for that moment. Now, beating the Saints is big, so that's very important and that's good, but it just feels like the Falcons are missing that gear that we all thought that they could hit with Kirk Cousins being there and distributing to all those guys. It's tough not to be a little disappointed, but I think Atlanta's overall playing pretty well. I just need to see them hone in just a little bit more, tighten the screws just a bit, and I think they'll be in a good spot. Carolina, they are 1-3 right now, and I know what everybody's thinking. F-, F. I am going to give them a D-. Here's the reason. Are they playing well? No. Do I respect their decision to bench Bryce Young? Yes. I think that this works for them on a couple of levels. Number one, he clearly wasn't playing well. Number two, they need to get an idea of what the hell is the problem. And at the very least, you know that Andy Dalton is a competent player who can go in and run an offense. And what they've found out is they actually don't have the worst team in the world. Like, their offensive line has been playing well all season, but you couldn't tell because the way Bryce Young was playing. And numbers-wise, they actually still were playing well, and every indication was he was the problem. And with Andy Dalton, that appears to be the case because they go and they drop 30 on the Raiders, and then they go and they get up into the 20s against the Bengals. So their offense is playing competent football. Defensively, they're not good. So I'll put it like that. Defensively, it's not a good situation. But what they did figure out is offensively, the investments they made into the offensive line and bringing in Deontay Johnson, those investments can work. They need to get the quarterback position just being competent to do that. So now this poses the question, can they get there with Bryce Young? I don't know. But I think that what this does is this gives them the opportunity to really hone in with him what he is doing wrong and being like, hey, you have to just trust it and rip it. You have the time. The guy is getting open. You have to hit your back foot and throw. And maybe it just won't work in Carolina. Maybe that's the truth. But I respect the process that Carolina has gone about diagnosing the issue with their roster, because they don't look like they're a great team, but they look like they're not an absolutely incompetent team. And I think that that's important. So they get a D- instead of an F for having the guts to do something difficult. On to the NFC West. San Francisco is 2-2 right now, the 49ers. I'm giving them a B. Injuries played a factor with them. If not for their injuries, they would be 3-1 right now, winning the Rams game, I think. Because a huge part of that game was drops, and when your injuries are to the skill position guys, that's a factor. But this is another team that the injuries concern me a bit going forward. Their offseason was also a bit tumultuous, so I'm not super shocked that they might have taken a little bit longer to mesh. But the fact that they're 2-2 and they dropped the game in there to the Rams, even with the injuries, it felt like they could have still won it. They get a B. I'm not concerned about them going forward. The injuries are the main reason why I don't have them at like B+. I think that as long as they're healthy, though, I still would tell you they're going to win the NFC West. I still would tell you that they're one of the more dangerous teams in the NFC as a whole, and they're still live to win the Super Bowl. So I need to see them get healthy before I can really invest more than saying they're still formidable, but they need a little bit more continuity to really get everything under them. The Rams, 1-3. I'm giving them a C. I am not going to drop them super low for the fact that they are also a team that just got hit by injuries right away. I actually would say they've done a pretty admirable job of staying competitive even in that situation. A lot of respect for Sean McVay, a lot of respect for Matthew Stafford. But at 1-3, it's tough to be like, oh, it's a B for being feisty. So I'm going to give them a C because they've stayed really competitive and very impressive just in terms of showing their spirit. So I'm going to give them a C. Seattle, 3-1. Seattle. I'm giving them a B+. No offense to the Seahawks because I think they played well, but the 3 wins really don't mean much in my eyes in terms of what I learned about the Seahawks. I learned more about the Seahawks in their week 4 loss to the Lions than the other 3 weeks combined. And what I've learned about that is their offense is certainly formidable and competent, but defensively they have holes. When you beat the Broncos in Bo Nix's first start, and then you go to overtime with the Patriots, and then you beat Miami without Tua, it's like, it's good you won because you should. So they've got the wins they should, which is good. But Detroit really showed some of the weakness where I'm like, it's definitely a good start to the year. Definitely. But I think that we saw that they might be just a hair below where they want. Granted, they didn't have their normal defensive line rotation in there against Detroit. So that needs to be considered, certainly. I think that to be 3-1 in the situation they are, we know the least about them of the 3-1 teams. So it's a B+ because I think they're good, but I just don't know how good yet. I need to see them face 1 or 2 more teams that are more on their level, and then we'll get a better read on Seattle. Arizona, 1-3, last team. I'm giving them a C because they're about what I thought. They're feisty, but they're going to struggle to really get over the hump with some of these wins. I think that they're trending in the right direction. Paris Johnson is playing well. Marvin Harrison is playing well, but dealing with, I believe it's like a hamstring or something like that, so that's disappointing. But they're sort of like what they were last year, but they look a little bit more competent, which is that's okay. It shows they're taking a step in the right direction. I wouldn't be shocked if they're a seller at the trade deadline, though, in terms of like some of the veteran guys like Buda Baker. But overall, they're about what I thought. Feisty, competitive, tough, not a pushover, but they're just not quite ready yet to turn feisty into wins. So, with that being said, those are my grades for the first quarter of the season for all these teams. Once again, hit like, hit subscribe. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And yeah, peace.